Oh, I think so. And talking about the celestial thing, as we lose more of our the cosmic rays that cause what you might call skin cancer, carcinoma, the problems that you get from overexposure to the wrong kind of sun is getting worse because the protective layers of our magnetic field are going away. Two-thirds to three-fourths of our protection just simply comes from the tons and tons of oxygen and air and so forth that's in our atmosphere. And by the time those those cosmic rays come through it, they get stopped. And the other quarter, the harmful stuff, was basically stopped by the magnetic field. And as that begins to go, and as our ozone layer gets weaker and weaker, primarily, though, the magnetic field that's around the planet, we're getting exposed to more and more harmful rays that is going to cause our bodies to be able to, of course, have these issues in our body like cancer occur, which is, again, just an upgrade of something that's dormant in our body, which in a healthy state allows it to happen. And like I was talking on my radio show, that at least part of it that I got up today because it got attacked, was that, you know, when you have a healthy soil and it's in the right balance, it creates a lot of what we call bricks in the plants, which is BRIX, a high sugar content, you might call it, and it has higher nutrients and so forth, and it has a low incident of bugs that show up. But all of a sudden, isn't it interesting, you go out and you plant one tomato out in the middle of your yard, a 2-acre yard, out in the middle of nowhere, and all of a sudden a tomato worm shows up. Now, you don't think that there was some tomato worm an acre and a half away at the bottom of a walnut tree waiting for a tomato plant to show up so that it can journey for 2 months over to that tomato and crawl on it and eat it. No, it's because they morph in their environment that's out of balance, and that's nature's way of destroying plants that are out of balance, that need to be destroyed because they are pro-disease, they're not ready, they're not edible, they shouldn't be eaten. And that's the same way with us. We need to be in balance, and that way we won't have diseases come. We won't have these upgrades of pathogens in our body, and we can stay in healthy balance. Now, you know, that's not the only way that we can keep things in balance. You know, previous to probably the planet that we have now, we probably had this heavy canopy of water that was above the planet that created a hyperbaric effect that put us under maybe 2 or 3 more atmospheric pressures than we've got now. And when that happens and you get more pressure, as most people understand how that works, you can raise the oxygen level. And when you do that, these microbes don't have a ghost of a chance. And that's primarily some of the things that has left this planet since we've been inhabiting it. And so those kind of issues aren't stopping, and we have more and more catastrophes probably on the way with other cosmic events, and it's just time to start preparing and get ready. That's all I can say.
It most certainly is. I have a caller in queue. I'm going to bring him in. Area code 803, you're live on the air with Dr. Waterman and A.C. Griffith.
Hey, Dr. Waterman and Mr. Griffin, how are y'all doing? I live down here in South Carolina, and my family's been farming for a long time. I don't farm, but my cousin does. And I was talking to a family member about the situation with the genetic soybeans, wheat, and corn that they're planting now. 15 years ago, it wasn't that big of a deal. You know, nobody cared. You would, typically soybeans, wheat, you would save your own wheat seed from year to year, and you'd buy some, but you didn't. You always, you would plant at least 50%. Now, guess what's going on? They're auditing farmers, and they're making them. The law right now is they can't store but 1 year. And if they plant 1,000 acres, they have to prove that, okay, so that was like so many tons of wheat seed that they planted. They have to prove that where the wheat seed came from, if you're following me. if they come in and they say, well, you've been storing this seed for like 3 years, you can't do that. They run a test on the wheat, and it's got patented genetics. Guess what? You got to pay a fine, a hefty fine, and it can turn into a lawsuit. They can come in and shut the farm down. It's almost impossible. I would say it is impossible right now to find any wheat, any beans, any corn that you could plant that you would not get into this argument with these people, because there's such a monopoly on the genetics. There's only a handful of companies that are producing. And where I'm going with this is people that are buying seed to store. If things get bad, say you plant your garden and you want to plant a lot of butter beans, because butter beans are real starchy. You can store them, they'll dry out, and you can store them in a mason jar on the counter. They could possibly come in, check your butter bean seed, and say, well, you can't plant that this year because that's patented genetics. And it sounds crazy, but the world that we're moving towards is all about patents. It's all about gene codes, DNA, and giving these people the legal authority, because that's what they are, they're legalists, to enforce these rules and these regulations. And but right now, I mean, these things aren't happening 10 years from now. They're happening right now. They're hitting the farmers hard with this to make sure that they're not storing grain to be replanted more than 1 year. And it's because of all the genetics. And it's scary. I believe they're setting up a system, call it the mark of the beast, whatever. But it's something that you might want to look into as you're preparing your seed banks or whatever. Try to get stuff that's not genetically modified. And you can look at fruit on trees that's been planted recently, like say over the last 10 years. Like we've got a little pear tree. Cut the pears open, the seeds don't look right. And I don't know where we got the tree from, but I guarantee you that tree was it was probably in the genetic code for it not to be able to produce good seeds, good fruit, but not good seeds, if you follow me. And anyhow, I just thought I'd throw that into the discussion and let folks know what's going on. It's something that you might want to keep your eye open for.
Yeah, I most certainly will keep our eye open on that. And thank you very much for the call. Imagine that. I mean, that's kind of like the prescription monitoring program of farming. I mean, that's really incredible, don't you think, Doc?
It's a mess. GMO corn is just non-GMO corn is almost impossible to find. And the freeze-dry company I deal with and what they're providing actually gives you a guarantee of GMO-free corn. The genetically modified crops that have got immune system from insects in it. You never know what it's going to do to us until after the fact, and it's getting harder and harder. We put a garden out this year, and we were experiencing all kinds of interesting things that we haven't in the past. But one of the things is that we thought our heirloom tomatoes weren't even going to make it. So rather than giving up, we transplanted them, moved them over, and said, okay, I hope you guys make it. And then all of a sudden they came through. They had this ability to make it, even though we didn't think they were. But, it's really getting monstrous. They don't want you to have these heirlooms primarily because they're sterile. You can't hardly, you can't plant them and expect them to come up the year after because they're hybrids. And even if they're not GMO, they're hybrids, and they can't be replanted. I think if they can't do too much storing of seeds, I think I'd be taking all those empty gunny sacks, Griff, and putting them over all these cameras at the intersections and have them bag the camera day, out there in those intersections.
I was thinking back in 1775.
You weren't alive then, were you, Griff?
I was a young boy. Almost. I was at Roosevelt Field at 27 when Lindbergh took off for his flight over to Paris.
Wow.
Back in 1775, when I was a young boy, Patrick Henry, the attorney from Hanover County, Virginia, reprimanded Jefferson and Washington, George Wythe, and other dignitaries sitting in St. John's Church, and he got angry with them, and that was the gist of his speech. He said, "Why are you sitting here? Why are you sitting here talking, and talking? Talking does no good. It's time to get our guns." And on one occasion he did. He gathered his friends in Hanover County and marched them to Williamsburg and stuck rifles under the governor's nose and got the gunpowder back that the governor had taken from the citizens of the community. So I think we're to that point. We're either going to sit around and talk and die and let our families die at the hands of these monsters. They're attacking us from all different angles. They're attacking our computers, our families, our food supplies, our clothing, our money. Our very existence is under attack. And the longer we sit and talk and do nothing, the worse it's going to be for us.
Yeah, I agree with you, Griff. And we got about 3 minutes left. And before we go, I just wanted to thank you, gentlemen, for a fascinating conversation tonight. And folks, on Sunday night, we're going to be doing the same thing. I'm going to have Dr. Waterman back on because this is outstanding. And, of course, half of my show prep tonight had to do with Kevin Annett. And unfortunately, after many attempts, both on his part and on mine, to get him on the show, we just couldn't get him connected. And, might I add, whilst trying to prep for the show, come to find out, his website was taken down. So, and that's not a coincidence either, let me say. He's scheduled to leave tomorrow to go protest out in front of the Vatican. So I wish him well, and I hope that the grace of God shines upon him, because he's going into enemy territory for sure. But guys, again, great interview. I think Sunday's going to be another great interview, and I look forward to it.
I do too. It'll be great to come together again.
Yeah, for sure.
I think it would too, and I'd just say boil the tea and bag the cameras.
You know what's funny? Real quick, we had a guy dressed as Santa Claus going around and putting boxes with gift wrap on the cameras, because we had the red light cameras here too, in the Hampton Roads area of Virginia, and of course, well, you know what happens. Santa Claus makes the front page of the paper, and there's a boy did it tickle me. That was just, it couldn't have got much better than that, to see Santa Claus gift wrap these cameras. But with that, folks, we'll see you again on Sunday night. This is Joe Joseph. This is Bridging the Gap. Take care, folks, and have a great evening.